We called them heroes. Bonifacio, Aguinaldo, Rizal, Ninoy, Cory. But what if the truth is not what we were taught? One was executed by his own revolution. One sold the nation's dream. One rejected the uprising. One walked into death, and one tried to fix what was already broken. This is not a celebration. This is an autopsy. Welcome to Heroes or Traitors, the truth about our national icons. Chapter 1. The Killing of Bonifacio. He was not from the elite, not a general, not a lawyer. Andres Bonifacio was a worker, a reader of banned books, a man who believed the people could rise without permission. In 1896, he lit the match. The Katipunan rose, and the Spanish Empire trembled. But as the revolution grew, so did ambition. Regional leaders, wealthy families, men with rank and title. They did not want to follow Bonifacio, they wanted to lead. March 1897, a meeting to unify the revolution. But it became a power struggle. Elections were held. Bonifacio, humiliated. He called the results a fraud. He walked out. Days later, he was arrested, charged with sedition, with treason, against the very revolution he had started. The trial was short, the verdict expected. Bonifacio and his brother Procopio were found guilty, sentenced to death. Emilio Aguinaldo, elected president. Aguinaldo was asked to spare them. He hesitated. Then he signed the order. May 10, 1897. In the mountains of Maragondon, Procopio was struck first, then Bonifacio, shot or hacked to death. The truth remains blurred, but one thing is clear. The revolution had killed its own. Some say it had to be done. Bonifacio was undisciplined, unpredictable, a threat to unity. Others say he was eliminated, not for the nation, but for ambition. For Aguinaldo, Bonifacio was a rival, a symbol he could not control. The Philippines was not yet a nation, but already it was divided between elites and workers, between generals and dreamers, between unity and betrayal. The revolution carried on, but the wound remained, and in every uprising since, it echoes, a people fighting for freedom, but never fully free from themselves. Chapter 2. Aguinaldo, Independence, with blood on his hands. He was young, charismatic, strategic, a natural leader, at least in the eyes of the elites. Emilio Aguinaldo rose quickly. While Bonifacio bled, he built alliances. After Tejeros, he led the revolutionary army. And after Bonifacio's death, he led everything. The Spanish were retreating. The Republic was rising. In 1899, Aguinaldo became president of the First Philippine Republic. But freedom was not waiting on the other side of Spain. The Treaty of Paris, signed without Filipinos present, sold the Philippines to the United States. Aguinaldo had declared independence, raised the flag, written a constitution. But Washington had other plans. What followed was war. 1899 to 1902, a brutal, bloody conflict. Villages were burned, civilians killed, guerrilla resistance was met with massacres. Aguinaldo went into hiding. His generals fought on. His government moved from town to town, chased by American forces, until 1901. March 1901. Aguinaldo was captured by US forces through treachery. General Funston lured him into a trap using Filipino scouts. Days later, Aguinaldo swore allegiance to the American flag. He called for an end to the resistance. For many Filipinos, this was betrayal. Their president had surrendered, not just himself, but the dream. Aguinaldo lived on, returned to politics, even ran for president under the American system. He marched in parades, gave interviews, wrote memoirs. He died in 1964, hailed as a hero. But the question remains, did he save lives or silence a revolution? Did he preserve the nation or sell its soul? Chapter 3. Rizal, Martyr, Elitist, or Pawn. Jose Rizal, doctor, writer, traveler, thinker, fluent in many languages, revered across continents. He did not raise a sword, he raised a pen. His novels, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, exposed the rot of Spanish rule. For many, that was enough to call him the father of the revolution. But Rizal never joined it. Rizal rejected violence. He believed in education, in evolution, not revolution. He formed La Liga Filipina, a peaceful reformist society. When the Katipunan rose in arms, Rizal distanced himself. He saw it as premature, as doomed. He asked not to be associated, even from exile. He did not call for war. The revolution begins. Rizal is arrested, not for action, but for influence. The Spanish feared his mind more than any rifle. December 30th, Rizal is executed by firing squad in Lunita, in front of a crowd. He turns to face the bullets, or tries to. The martyr is born. The myth is sealed. Streets bear his name. Monuments rise in his honor. His image watches over every classroom. Rizal is taught as the ultimate patriot. But beneath the marble and the lessons, there is doubt. Did he do enough? Did he stand for the people, or only for the educated class? Bonifacio called him our guiding star. But that star never marched. Some say Rizal lit the fire. Others say he only lit the room, enough to see, not enough to act. Was he a genius ahead of his time, or a man who refused to get his hands dirty? A father of a revolution who never called for one. Chapter 4. Ninoy, the man who wouldn't kneel. Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., Brilliant, charismatic, quick with words, and even quicker with ambition. At 34, he was the youngest senator in the Philippines. He spoke against corruption, against injustice. But more than anyone, he spoke against Ferdinand Marcos. And Marcos was listening. 1972, martial law is declared. Ninoy is arrested, tried in a military court, sentenced to death. For years, he is kept in solitary confinement. Isolated, sick, forgotten by many. He fasts, he writes, he prays. Then, he is released for health, for optics, for pressure. He goes into exile and finds a new voice. Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr., exiled for 7 long years, boarded a flight from Boston, from Logan International, to Los Angeles. From Los Angeles across the Pacific, destination Taipei. The man who had once stood in the Philippine Senate now traveled under a false name. Passport, Marcial Bonifacio. Marcial for martial law, Bonifacio for the fort where he had once been imprisoned. In Taipei, he met with journalists, changed into a bulletproof vest, smiled for the cameras, said goodbye to his family, in silence. On the morning of August 21st, 1983, he boarded China Airlines Flight 811, final destination, Manila. He knew what might await him. But for Ninoy, there was no question. The Filipino is worth dying for, he had once said, and now he would prove it. The plane touched down at the Manila International Airport just after 1 p.m. Reporters wait, cameras roll. As he steps off the plane, a shot rings out. Ninoy falls, dead. Not in a war zone, not in a courtroom, but on the tarmac, in broad daylight. Seconds. That's all it took. Benigno Aquino stepped onto Filipino soil and collapsed in blood. His blood was still warm when soldiers rushed in. No medics, no questions, just a body taken fast. They placed him in a van. Property of AVSCOM, the Military Security Command. Not an ambulance, not even a stretcher. Just like that, Ninoy was gone. But here's what the public didn't know. Just weeks before his return, control of AVSCOM had shifted from civilian hands to military ones. Coincidence or calculation? High-ranking generals now gave the orders. They commanded the scene, they controlled the evidence, and they vanished the truth before the cameras could find it. His body rushed away, hidden from the world, silenced again. But another man lay beside the jet. They said he pulled the trigger. For 4 hours, he remained. No ambulance, no dignity, just silence and photographers. The message was clear. The assassin had been caught. Case closed. Move on. But the questions screamed louder. Rolando Galman. Galman, they said, was a communist hitman, sent to sow chaos, to stop a martyr. Yet the evidence rebelled. The bullet's path came from above, not behind, not beside. From an angle so steep, Galman would have needed to be 2 meters tall, but he was 1.61. So how? Did he fly up the stairs? Did he pass guards, leap above Ninoy and shoot downward? The official story collapsed. No killer was ever named, but the signs pointed inward. 3 soldiers had escorted him down the stairs. One of them, they say, pulled the trigger. Which one? No one was tried. No one convicted. They came with banners, with flowers, with faith. Thousands stood outside Manila International Airport, waiting for the man who dared to return. Benigno Aquino, their voice in exile, their hope for change. But hope was held at the gates. No one was allowed near the tarmac. No press, no friends, not even his closest allies. Soldiers had sealed the airport, not for his safety, but for secrecy. Then came the switch. Aquino's plane was redirected. Away from the terminal, away from the crowd. Gate 8, remote, out of sight. Later they would say, it was planned that way, so no one would witness the moment when a homecoming became an execution. They didn't hide him. They showed the world what had been done. Benigno Aquino, laid out in a glass coffin, no makeup, no reconstruction, just the wound, just the truth. His family wanted the world to see what a regime does when it fears a voice more than a gun. Marcos denied everything, but few believed him. Did he order the hit? Did he allow it? Or did others act while he turned away? Some blamed his wife, Imelda, her ambition, her hunger to inherit power, a rival silenced just in time. Only one thing argued against the conspiracy: the backlash. Hundreds of thousands poured into the streets. Grief became fury, motorcycle caravans of mourning. Flags, cries, candles, a nation in sorrow, but no longer in silence. They called him a martyr, and one voice said what many now believed: the greatest president we never had. His blood stained the runway, but it also sparked something. Mourning turned into marches, grief into resistance. Ninoy's funeral drew millions. In death, he became a symbol, not of power, but of courage. He never got to be president, but his death cracked the foundation of Marcos's rule. It lit the fuse that would lead to EDSA, to his widow's rise, but the system, the elite, the patronage, the old machinery stayed. Did Ninoy die for real change, or just for a different face on the same game? He stood for something. He died for something. But what did we do with the chance he gave us? Chapter 5. Cory, the saint or the system? Corazon, Cory Aquino. She had not planned to lead a nation. She was a widow, a mother, a symbol. But in the wake of Ninoy's death, millions looked to her. In 1986, she ran against Ferdinand Marcos and won. The dictator refused to step down. The people rose, the army split, the world watched as a revolution unfolded, not with rifles, but rosaries. EDSA. A highway turned into holy ground. Tanks halted by nuns. Soldiers embraced by civilians. Cory was sworn in as presentation not just by law, but by a movement. For a brief moment, it felt like history had turned. A dictator was gone, democracy was back. Or so it seemed. Governing was harder than resisting. Cory inherited a broken country, an empty treasury, a politicized military, and a system that had never truly changed. Her administration restored rights, but struggled with justice. She faced coup attempts. She avoided confrontation. Land reform stalled. Old dynasties re-emerged. The dream began to dim. To some, Cory was a saint, a woman of faith, integrity, and courage. To others, she was a caretaker of a broken system. She resisted dictatorship, but not oligarchy. She stood for democracy, but not always for justice. Her image remains powerful, but her legacy remains contested. Cory stepped down in 1992, quietly, without scandal. She did what so many before her didn't. She let go of power, but the system remained. She opened the door, but did we walk through it? Did we honor her sacrifice, or simply replace one family with another? The answer is still unfolding. These names, Bonifacio, Aguinaldo, Rizal, Ninoy, Cory, we were told who they were. We memorized the facts. We passed the tests. But history is not a statue. It breathes, it argues, it breaks and reforms, and so must we. The battles are no longer fought with bolos or banners. Today, the struggle is memory, education, truth. What do we honor? What do we question? What do we change? This video is for the teachers, the historians, the parents, the survivors, and to you for staying, questioning, remembering. Thank you for not forgetting. If this journey moved you, if these stories live in you, you can carry them further. Visit our Timeless Tales shop to explore the limited Philippines collection. Each design is a tribute to struggle, to resilience, to the soul of a nation. Wear the story, share the legacy. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you consider a hero? What part of your country's history still feels unresolved? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this meaningful, share it, because history belongs to those who remember.